In conversation with Anna Gibson-Steele. Anna, what a time we are living in. It's a lot of fear about. Have you experiences of fear and what it is?
Oh, look, after 20 years of working with helping people overcome fear, like, there's never been a time like this.
Yeah.
It's off the graph. You know, I'm getting calls this week from people of all ages, afraid to leave their house. You know, people who were perfectly independent in February. So yeah, I'm quite concerned about the levels of it, because it seems now that it's more universal. Before, people would feel it if they were navigating a trauma, or there was something wrong, or they were going through a struggle. But now it's affecting everybody, you know, so yeah.
How is it manifesting? What is it in people that they feel this fear? And how do you know if you are in fear? Because it's very hard to figure what everything is at the moment, because there's so much going on.
Yeah, I think we all experience it, you know, at the physical level. That's the best way to, rather than trying to figure out why or what is it or what triggered it, let's look at it. It physically happens in the body. You know, so it's our fight or flight, our survival mechanism that the cavemen had back in the day. And what happens is, when your brain perceives a threat, it doesn't even have to be real. When it perceives a threat, it kicks off all of these hormones, and they are what give you the butterflies, the tightness in the throat, the dry mouth, the palpitating heart, the sweaty hands. It's a chemical reaction in your body that happens. So it physically happens.
So if I have all that, if I have just aches and pains, and I think that can be happening at the moment while people aren't getting out, you can put it down to something else, something physical, or an old injury, or maybe it's just this or just that. What could that be? Stress? Could that be fear that you're living in, and now you have nothing to compare it to because you're not going out as much?
Yeah, absolutely. When the fear response is kicked on, it gives preference to breathing, heart rate, and so on to help us survive. But what it does at the same time is it downgrades, if you like, the other systems. So it doesn't spend as much energy or focus on digestion. So people who are stressed or fearful will have heartburn, peptic ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome, because the body isn't spending that extra bit of energy on the digestion. Same with insomnia. You know, your body doesn't want you to go into deep sleep because it thinks you won't hear the danger and you'll die, so it's trying to protect you by interrupting your sleep pattern. So sleep, digestive problems, reproductive system, so fertility, menstrual cycle for females, libido issues, all of that. And the really big thing, ironically, is it really affects your immune system. So the hormones that your body produce when you're fearful shut down, they mask the immune system.
Which we need hugely
more
at
than
the
ever.
moment. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why people don't seem to realise, but if you think of, in the day where, if you're working in a corporation, how many of your colleagues got sick when they went on holidays? Or over Christmas, people get sick all the time. That's because they're in fight or flight all year. And then, so the body is masking the steroids, cortisol and so on, mask the immune system. So the illnesses or the aches and pains that we have don't show up until we switch off the stress response on holidays. And then the illness shows up. But in fact, that was in you all the time. It's just that the hormones were masking it.
So what if someone was listening to that and said, okay, maybe it's better to stay stressed for a while? That's, because we're all reading, there was so much information coming at us that that if it is going to mask, and while this I suppose there's a pandemic going on, is it a good thing?
No, because you see, the fight or flight is helpful if there is some physical threat to you, like something that you have to fight or run away from. Because it's a reptilian brain response that was really based on when the lion appeared and we had to fight the lion or we had to run away to survive. In this instance, for the vast majority of us, thanks be to God, who are healthy and well, it's a perceived threat. So your body adapting as if you had to physically do something to survive it is really not helpful. It's an outdated response because, for most of us, the fear is perceived. And in being in fear, you're masking your immune system. So you're really giving yourself a double whammy if you're in fear. So, and obviously all the other systems are going to be long-term compromised. So we're promoting illness when we're in fear.
Okay, so that has to be stopped, obviously. How do we go about that when the entire world is petrified?
Yeah. Well, again, the way our brain perceives fear, we can learn to change that. We can learn to work with that. The difficult, and of course, you know, the common ways we would do that now are with mindfulness or meditation and so on and so forth. Or we would naturally have done it by, you know, playing the sport or going to the concert or listening to the music or having a laugh, a get together with friends. And all of those things have been taken now pretty much from us. So going on a holiday, you know, for a couple of weeks and switching it off would have helped to do that. So in the absence of that, it's my absolute belief this is where, you know, holistic healthcare comes into its own. Because you can go to a holistic therapist and they can help you switch it off, because you have to switch it off first.
Okay, how do you do that?
Well, you can go and have a relaxing treatment with and there's a whole span of different therapies available. Personally, I love Reiki, it's my favourite one, but there are hundreds of them. And then when you go, what happens is the therapist will assist you in turning off the stress response for the hour or hour and a half that you're with them during the therapy. Once you get the fear response switched off, then you can start figuring out, okay, how can I train my brain that when it's picking up these signals that it's not switching on when I don't need it switched on. But you have to turn it off first.
Okay, so you turn it off first. The best way is holistically, and I agree with you. But for people who feel, they're still so scared that they can't leave their homes, meditation is amazing, but it's not for everybody. The monkey mind that we all have is a little bit active at the moment. So for those type of people, the people who really do feel uncomfortable out in public, is there something at home, Anna?
Absolutely. Now, that's why I love the energy therapies. You can actually do them by distance. So during lockdown, I was able to help my clients. I have clients all over the world. You can deal with them on Skype or Zoom. And you can treat people that way. So yes, people who can't leave home, please get in touch and find one. You know, they're in the Midwest where I am, there's hundreds of them. You know, I've trained hundreds myself. So there's plenty of us out there ready and willing to help. And I think it is the way to go.
Switching off your mind is another big one. Or not even switching it off, because that can be very difficult as well. Changing your thought patterns. Is that the source, as well as switching it off, of not going through this again? Not going through this level of fear, because it's really heightened at the moment.
Learning to, what I call it, is getting mentally fit. And we're never trained in that. Now, mindfulness is a way to do it. The problem with mindfulness is when you're in fear, you cannot do it.
No.
It is counterintuitive to your brain won't let you switch off because it wants you in high alert so that you'll survive and hear the danger. So while, yes, mindfulness is the way to go, you first, as I say, have to turn off the stress response. Then we can start talking about why certain things are triggers and how you can change them and how you can adapt it. But you can't do that first. That's second. Imperative we switch it off first.
Okay, so just to give people steps, because that's really important, because sometimes when you're hearing stuff, and as you said, as we both said, there's a lot of information out there at the moment and it's very difficult to decipher what's real and what isn't real. So the best way is to switch off the fear by going to a holistic practitioner that you trust, and there's so many of them out there, and you can do it from home, by distance, and then changing the thought patterns so that it doesn't get inside you again, because this probably won't stop. There will be other layers of fear, and there is in all of our lives. Have you seen, tell us a little bit about your experiences with turning off fear. Have you seen anything that was really dramatic that could help people at the moment? A little, I know you've had many clients who probably come to you with fear. But
phobias would be a very classic one. You know, many people have many different types of phobias. And a phobia can be dealt with in about 30 seconds, once you understand how. Now, that's not to say that if I have a phobia, I can turn it off myself. I need somebody, a practitioner trained in that, either hypnosis, NLP, body talk. There's a whole pile of ways that we can do that, because it really is just a glitch in the subconscious. You know, so yes, there are really, really wonderful techniques that we can use to turn them off. But ultimately then you have to learn how to filter what's coming in and how to change how you process the external events on the inside. And that's a lifetime. You know, I'm still learning it myself.
Yeah, obviously. So am I. Good luck with that. The other thing is, Anna, that I think when you say try a holistic practitioner, some of us are open to it and some of us are not.
Mm-hmm.
For those people who are watching that may not be too sure,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that because I know one of a neighbour of ours, and we had another neighbour who offered Reiki to her, and she said, "Oh God, that stuff is useless, rubbish, don't believe in it, shaman stuff." For people who have never tried it, never dabbled in it, it maybe could be a little bit scary even.
Yeah.
What about
Okay,
those?
so what I would say is you start with whatever would appeal to you the best. Everybody loves an Indian head massage.
Oh, love it.
If you get that from a holistic practitioner, that's going to help. I mean, even, really good hairdressers, in my opinion, are therapists.
Yes.
Because what they do is they're working on your head, they're massaging your head. And that's why people are inclined to tell the hairdresser everything. You could sit at the hairdresser's
It's
and
so true.
the person next to you is spilling the beans on the details of their life,
True.
because the really good hairdresser is connected at a heart level with their client, and because they're working on the head, they're releasing the stresses that are in the head. That's why that happens. So you can do this in whatever way suits, that you're comfortable with. Reflexology is just the feet, full body. But again, it's to get somebody who's holistically trained, because they will understand the connection between body, mind and spirit. It doesn't have to be. I understand the energy work can be, for some people, a little bit, too far, unfamiliar perhaps. But actually it's the easiest and the best, because you lie fully clothed. You don't even have to be with the practitioner actually.
Yeah.
And you go to sleep. So it's a very easy one, for people who might not want to have anyone touching them.
Which is huge.
Touching their body.
Which is huge, yeah, because even though they may go and get their hair done, which is a part of your body that is being massaged, at the same time, there is that question that people go, are you going to touch me physically?
Yeah. So with the energy work, you don't have to do that. So I would strongly suggest there's definitely something for everybody. Not everybody will like the same thing. We all like, you like fish, I like meat, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, but do try, because I don't think there's anything else at the moment out there that can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody, there are quite a few trying, I suppose, and you know what, addictions are becoming more because you might be going towards people might be drinking a little bit more at home, or whatever they're addicted to, they may be doing it a little bit more within the confines of their own environment. So it is trying to take people out of their comfort zone. Maybe as well, it's, when they're already out of their comfort zone, it can be a little tricky at the moment, and it's just how can we, I suppose, make it more amenable for people them, to come and open themselves up to it, to get rid of this fear. Because where do you think this fear is going to go? Where, if we don't get rid of it, where does it go, Anna?
Well, ultimately, it's going to destroy all of us physically. Because we are not meant to be in fight or flight for continual lengths of time.
I think we need to be reminded of that a little bit more. This isn't the way. We weren't meant to suffer.
No, absolutely not. And it's really, in many ways, a wonderful opportunity for us to take a very serious look at this. Because if we look at how we live, how my daily life, generally, particularly when I worked in the corporate world, my daily life bore no resemblance to how my grandmother lived. We got all this technology that, maybe she had to wash clothes by hand and I have an automatic washing machine. But what did I do with the extra time that saved me? I ended up doing more and more and more and more. And the natural things that would have been in their lifestyle, like the music where everyone got together, the game of cards at night, the baking, the cooking, the chopping the wood, all of those, being out in nature, all of those natural things, really, in the last 10 years, were no longer essential. They were like an added extra. If you had time for them, maybe, but they weren't part of...
It was a treat.
The day, exactly. So the natural way that we used to turn off this has gone from our lifestyles. But the fact now that even the few that were left open to us, like going to the beach or, the things that were taken away, it's really getting us to look at this. So from that point of view, it's a positive thing, because you look and say, hold on a minute.
Do you think people are, you're absolutely right, do you think people are going, I don't want to live like this anymore? Yeah. I don't want to feel like this anymore. Yeah. That's a big thing. Don't want to feel like this anymore.
I think it was a wonderful opportunity, because everybody got to look at their priorities. You know, what's important?
Yeah.
Family suddenly became important. You know, community, super important.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are, as human beings, we need all of that. We need the interaction. It's another concern I have because of how things have gone. You know, that lack of connection. As humans, we're not meant to be isolated. We need connection. So it might have been through, you know, the GAA or the, you know, the music in the pub or whatever it was. So there's a real hole in how we used to deal with it. And people who had addictions, of course they're going to become increased. Because an addiction really, ultimately, any addiction is a search for joy, isn't it?
Yeah, or yes, a search for joy or a numbing of the pain.
Exactly.
Which is
It's
basically the same thing.
So we're searching for joy. You know, the person who drinks too much is searching for joy. The person who takes the recreational drugs is searching for joy. It's just not a good way to go
It's not, no, absolutely not. I suppose the big thing is as well to recognise that the end goal is joy.
Yes.
And with the pandemic going on, there's very little joy in the news. There's very little joy in the media that is streaming into us. And whether we like it or not, you go to bed. It's still in your subconscious.
Yes.
You might have a restless night's sleep. You get more tired the next day. You're now vulnerable and susceptible to a little bit more fear because you're tired. You can't battle it any longer.
Yes.
Do you think we're at the moment we have to get out of this cycle?
Yeah. We need joy. Yes. You know, we need joy.
We need a bit of a laugh, Anna.
Exactly.
A dirty laugh. Which we both have.
Laughter and music and crack and, you know, smiling at each other. And, you know, let's remember that we're humans.
Yeah.
You know, the whole focus, we went very far down the rabbit hole looking at one virus of, you know, there's infinite viruses. There's infinite physical illnesses. And we've completely negated the conversation about our mental well-being and our spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge, huge mistake.
I think it's actually down the ladder a little bit more because now people are concerned, obviously, and rightly, about the economic situation. So you have this health, then you have the economy. But the mental health and the spiritual health are very far down at the moment, even though they're the ones they're the especially the mental health, well, the spiritual as well, you know, that if you're not bigger than this, what happens then?
Exactly. You see, we're not just a physical being. It's not, you know, it's not about how long I live. It's about the quality of my life. And that's where it needs to shift.
Yeah.
You know, living long for, you know, in misery is potentially worse than death.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's almost nearly part of our culture that we need to shed, though, because there is this thing that you're here to suffer for a place in the next life. That has to go, and I think people are, you know, trying to just shed that as quickly as possible. But you're right about the joy, and the joy replacing the fear as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
While we're here, as opposed to anything else, because I'm sure, I don't know if you're practicing Reiki, are children being affected by this greatly?
Oh, hugely.
And I think they're a little bit forgotten over there as well.
Yeah.
That there's a little bit of anxiousness. If we're anxious, we pass it on to, even if you don't have children, to nieces or nephews, or over, you know, Zoom, or they're getting the feeds as well.
Yeah, and I think any of us that have younger children in our lives, we have a duty of care to them. And you're right, it doesn't matter if me telling them don't be afraid, when they clearly can see that I'm afraid, is not the way to go about it. So it's imperative we work on our own fear. You know, as, you know, parents or, you know, leaders or teachers or whatever in the country, it's our duty to protect the children. And, you know, fear is not the way to protect them. You know, we're only born with two fears, actually. The fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. They're the only two fears we're born with. Every other fear you have, you learned.
Yes, it's
every other one.
Yeah.
So if you learn it, well then, you know, we can unlearn it. So we need to be really, really mindful of that. Especially in my practice, I have to say, the last 10 years, I've seen a huge amount of young children. As young as, you know, before they're talking, suffering with anxiety and fear and panic attacks. Like it's a really, really prominent thing. And that was before February. So I know for a fact that this is going to massively impact the children and their capacity to have joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and children have a natural disposition for it.
Yes.
You know,
Oh, they seek it out everywhere.
Absolutely.
Oh, completely.
Absolutely.
And we've taken them away from all of that at the moment. So if you don't have it in yourself, it's so important for people around children to have that joy, even if you don't feel it authentically at the time. And I'm not saying fake it till you make it, but there is a sense of...
Well, we could do things. You know, we could be mindful of not talking about the numbers. We could be mindful of not having the television going in the background. We could be mindful of, you know, of course, follow the hygiene, but let's not, you know, everybody knows now, you know, so we all know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, so ease off a little bit on that. And just be mindful of, you know, what inner state do I want the children to be in? And the children have always had a great capacity for raising everybody else's joy. You know, grandparents in particular, because they're maybe not as stressed about, you know, the have-tos with the grandchildren. And when the grandchildren come, you can feel the difference. You can feel the joy that the children bring. And we need to really, really mind that. If we destroy that in the children, it's hard enough to find it when you end up in the real world, you know, with all of the real stresses.
Yeah.
If we don't mind it in the children, they really aren't
Well,
going
they're
to
the
have much of a
adults
chance.
into the future.
Correct.
And we've just loaded them up with more layers of fear than is necessary. And the big bad world out there is already going to challenge you in every single way possible. Just to be, I suppose, mindful not to layer them up with these kind of issues, and even ones that they might be small now. Yeah. What
can we do instead? So let's turn it. So instead of trying to pretend, you know, that the pandemic isn't going on, let's get proactive. Because when you're proactive, it gives you a sense of power. Yeah. So simple things. Talk to a nutritionist. Find out that vitamin C, zinc, you know, all of the vitamin D during the winter will help to boost the immune system. And then when you give that to the children in the morning, you say, this is really going to help your immune system and this is going to keep you healthy. Straight away, there's a proactive... Yeah. Correct.
I've done something before I've even left the house.
Exactly. So now the children go, oh, well, I'm fine because my immune system isn't going to be compromised and I'm going to eat the healthy food and I'm going to make sure there's lots of fresh green veg and so on and so forth and get plenty of sunlight and fresh air. So if we do it that way, you know, we can't run in the corner and hide from this. Yeah. We have to take action.
Let's talk about the positives that have come out of this. We've already talked about people shifting and saying, I don't want to suffer anymore now. I want to live differently. Yeah. A lot of people are changing careers even.
Yes.
You know, so with that change, it's a change in their energy, in their vibration, in how they are going to be in the world. That's huge. So other changes, other positives that have come out of this. What are they?
I think it is. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of us. It has kind of leveled the playing field like nothing else. You know, we all have, generally speaking, most of us grow in life after a trauma. Unfortunately, it's kind of how life is. You know, so something really bad happens to us and that pushes us into this whole healing thing and then we learn and ultimately all of it is around fear anyway. Everything is. So we build a fear muscle. What's really exquisite about this time is everybody's going through it simultaneously. So it's really a fantastic time for us all to have the conversation. You know, there is no stigma to being afraid now, whereas there was last year.
So true. And I met a lady actually walking by the river early in the lockdown and I said, hi, how are you? As you would normally say, hi, how are you? And she said, I'm not doing too good actually. And I'd never met her before. And we had this 15, 20 minutes. And I thought, that's a positive that has come out of this.
Absolutely.
She lived only 2 minutes from where I live, and I never saw her before. Now, we all go different directions in the morning, and, you know, so, but it was lovely, the openness that was there.
Yes.
If you're struggling now, it's okay to say it.
Absolutely. And the thing is for us to get mindful of our neighbours. I am concerned because our natural capacity is that. Yeah. And we would always look, and many people have stepped up and helped others in their community. But when we're out and about now, what I found in the initial stages was people were so afraid they were afraid to talk. Yeah. And I'd be in the supermarket, this is pre-mask and all of that, And like people just weren't even speaking. There was this deathly silence around. And I found smiling at people made them a little jumpy because they weren't expecting it. So that's what happens when we go into shock. But we need to make sure we're out of the shock stage now.
Do you see, yes, actually, do you see that there's been a dissolving of the shock now, where people are taking maybe a little bit more ownership of what they're going to do? This is okay for me, that's not okay for you, that's fine.
Absolutely.
And judgmental in the middle of it?
We need respect.
Yeah.
You know, like you talking about helping that lady at the start. I'm concerned that, you know, this kind of, it's ironic because we've got this we're all in it together on the one hand, and then you've got the whole snitch on your neighbour type mentality on the other, so it's really weird.
Yes.
And we need to be very careful that we don't go down that road.
Yeah.
Because none of us are islands. We need community. I saw a great post the other day, I don't know who put it up. They said something about, you know, the government want you maybe to, you know, snitch on your neighbour. I think it was in the UK or something.
Yeah.
Where they actually said they wanted neighbours to make sure the numbers in the house. And the post said, will the government jumpstart your car when it doesn't work? Will the government look out for your child when they're out on the green in front of the house?
You're right, or the alarm goes off.
Will the government, you know, so I thought that was very
careful. Yeah,
let's be very, very careful that we don't forget our humanity in this.
Yeah.
And, you know, for example, I was with...
That's very warlike to me, where neighbours turn on neighbours. You have to be very careful about that level.
Very careful. And the fact that, you see, it's easier to do, A, because people are in shock, or, you know, when they're in fear, we don't think the way we normally think.
Yeah.
You know, you become, I've got to protect me and mine, and it doesn't matter about anything else. Your world gets much smaller when you're fearful. So there's certainly, you know, that side of it. But we need to be very careful because, and when you're not in your community and you're not in the church maybe talking, or at the pitch, or in the pub, you know, that isolation gets more, so that fear gets more, so that, you know, my world gets a bit smaller. And I'd be very concerned. We need to make sure that we don't lose our humanity in this.
Yeah, while the world is getting smaller and you are isolated from those people, another thing that could happen is that you think other people might have a perception of what you're doing. Do you become very conscious, especially in a situation like this, of and I saw it the other day at the school gate, one mother saying, oh, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? Kids are coming out, there's this, you know, this army of masks, you know, is that natural, is it not? And there's a confusion there at the moment, a massive confusion as to how people think they're being perceived, what they feel is the right thing to do. Where in this confusion should we go?
Great question. It's a very simple answer.
Yay!
Very simple. Go into your heart and ask yourself, here, what is the right thing for me to do?
Yeah.
Right here, right now.
And you know...
Don't let your head confuse it.
Yeah.
What's the law? What am I allowed to do?
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, Geri, if somebody was dying with something like leprosy, you know, or something highly contagious, if they needed a hug, I would give them a hug.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to lose my compassion, empathy and humanity because of something my head is telling me. And I think if we all go into our heart, we all know how to stay safe. It's inbred into us, you know. Well, you could argue the people climbing Everest might might have...
We've all done a few dodgy things, Anna.
Of fear. But, you know, intrinsically, we're hardwired to stay safe.
Yeah.
But, so let's not lose our humanity. That would be my thing. You know, please, people, everybody's a human being. I had a beautiful client yesterday who, she's suffering with, she had mental health issues for a long time. But I had booked to see her, and just before I saw her, she had gone to the bank and she had had a panic attack that she hadn't had for years.
In the bank?
Oh. Because she was wearing the mask. You see, because the mask reduces the oxygen intake.
Yes.
Now, she did not know that because of her psychological, that she's exempt from wearing it because nobody told her.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, we have to, people don't understand, certain people should not wear a mask. Yeah. You know, if they're compromised with respiratory illness or if they feel distressed when they wear it and so on, they are exempt under the law. But they're not aware of that. And I feel a huge empathy because I'm so connected to that field of work, for these people, because these aren't the type of people who are brave enough or bold enough to stand up to the ominous security guard at the door of the shop or the bank or wherever they're going to say, no, I'm exempt. They're the very people who can't say that.
Yeah.
So I really would like to see a bit more respect shown to those who aren't wearing masks.
Yes.
You know, it takes great courage for them not to wear a mask.
And they're going through their own battle. Nobody knows what anybody's going through, really. It's like
Correct.
behind every closed door. Everybody's home. Nobody really knows what's going on, regardless of how idyllic it looks.
Yes.
And it's kind of a similar thing with the masks and with because everybody is sanitizing. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yes.
And, you know, keeping whatever laws that they need to keep. But you're right about the humanity level, not to lose that in the milieu. In all of this that's happening, that our compassion isn't struck out.
Absolutely. You know, I saw a post, somebody had sent me something this morning about the entertainment industry in Ireland. And, you know, they're getting together, and I feel huge empathy for them.
Yeah.
You know, an artist who their joy is in their music, their painting, their, you know, being on the stage, whatever it is.
And their connection with their audience is that. It's a
Absolutely.
huge energy for them.
It's the same in the sport.
Yes.
I see it in the rugby.
Yes,
You know, the
yes.
huge thing always for me was the connection between the supporters and the team. And, you know, the team
Yes.
feed off that.
And it's funny that I was listening to a podcast this morning that were talking about that, how players get a little bit very depressed when they finish their footballing
Yes.
career or their rugby career or their baseball career, because it's not so much always the game.
Yes.
It's the people, their tribe,
Yeah.
the locker room.
Absolutely.
Going to training every
Yeah.
day. It's
Yeah.
that they miss as
Yeah.
opposed to the big days and
Yeah.
the awards. It's not even that.
It's
you
the
know.
connection.
It's the feeding.
Again.
The feeding.
It's the human connection. So here we have all of our musicians
Yes.
who feed their soul,
Yes.
their spirit. They get their joy from their music and from sharing it.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm not a bit musical, but I know how music can change my inner state.
Yes.
My daughter plays piano, and for me it's like having a massage on the inside when I hear her playing, even though I'm completely tone deaf.
Lovely.
So there's a healing, I mean, there's a whole field of healing actually, music
Yeah.
therapy, sound therapy, and
Yes.
so on. But, you know, in a general everyday environment, you know, like songs of praise are uplifting. You know, it's not about whether I go to church or not. When I hear hymns at Christmas, they open my heart. They give me a sense of joy. They uplift me.
It's true.
And all of that has been removed. And whatever about me as a public not being able to enjoy that, for the musician, that's like pulling out their lifeline.
It's soul destroying. It is.
It's not about,
absolutely.
and it may well be that that's how they pay the bills as well, but it's not about paying the bills
Yeah.
in that instance.
It's who
There's
they
something
are.
more correct that has been absolutely taken away from them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's got to be huge. And, you know, you see the
Do you
problem.
think that life like that, that I suppose there isn't too much emphasis on that, and they're afraid to say it as well because they feel, well, there's worse off.
Exactly. I think
But don't
you're
lose
right.
yourself.
I think we've all been programmed, and indeed I see it. I've seen it on the motorway, you know.
Really?
This, you see, to get people to change behaviour, the easiest way is to do it through guilt.
Of course.
They know that, you know, Hitler knew that, Goebbels knew that. That's how you control people and how you change behaviour. So I think everybody's afraid to appear selfish. You know, I can't come, like in our home, 3 businesses are gone, absolutely gone, plug completely pulled on them. And is it okay? I think people aren't even okay about saying that.
No, they're not, because
you know-
again, we're guilty as soon as we say it, because we
Exactly.
think, well, we're not on the streets.
And you're not alone, and you're not the, you know, but the fact is, the ramifications emotionally and societally because of those things are huge, but we're not going to see them. They won't show up immediately. You know, it's like this slope, it's like a recession. You know, the first 6 months they tell us a recession, but we don't necessarily feel it. You know, it's 6 months in, you start to go, oh my God, you know, the job is gone. And we all know there's economics, but health is absolutely correlated. If you can't pay the bills, your health is going to suffer.
Of course
That's
it
a
is.
fact.
Your
So-
stress, your cortisol.
And of course, we weren't even allowed, made feel guilty that you could even talk about the economy. But I would talk about the economy from a perspective of quality of life
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
health. Like, economy isn't just about money, it's about the health of the people involved in the economy.
Yes. I completely agree with you. The other thing, I suppose, on that note as well, that if we're afraid to say it because of this guilt, because we're not the worst off, but we might be badly off,
Yeah.
but we're not very bad.
Yeah.
Are we suppressing it then? Is that where part of this, again, this ill health may come from? Because now we can't really talk about it.
Of course. Yeah, I think
So where does that go, you know?
And you see, the problem is the safe environment where people may feel like where they could be out with a bunch of friends, that's not happening anymore.
No, there's no release.
Exactly. It's not safe to share it on social media because people are being attacked.
Yes.
And, you know, again, where's our humanity? I don't agree with everybody I hear, but they are entitled to their opinion. It doesn't matter that I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
And again, I think if we pare it all back, it's very simple. If we all go into our heart, everything I say, it's hard to do everything, but you know, if for the most part, when I'm speaking from here. That's never going to hurt anybody.
No, your intention is different. You see, when you're doing that, and it's agenda free.
Actually, I heard a great one the other day. The difference between hurt and harm.
Oh yes.
So you know, the man was saying, you know, the dentist hurt him.
Yeah.
But he didn't do harm. In fact, he healed
the wound. Actually, yeah.
And I think that's it. You know, sometimes the things we say can hurt because people don't like to hear them. But the fact is, they don't harm. In fact, they can heal.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we need to take ownership. When I hear people being very judgmental, I can't help but stop them. Because, you know, that's not the world I want to live in. And
what would you say to somebody that you heard? What would you say? How, in a way that is also not being judgmental?
Yeah. Well, what I would feel is anybody who is like that, they're in fear. So the first thing I see is their fear. And I cannot help them by going to the level of fear. So, you know, attacking, being judgmental, getting angry with them, that's not helpful. The only thing that's going to put like a lip saver on chapped lips is going to empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy, compassion for, you know, how hard they're finding it. And, you know, if they're willing, if they're open to try and throw them a lifeline and say, look, this helps, or, you know, come to the beach with me, let's go for a walk on the beach, or, you know, be practical to help to bring them around.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be mindful, and we can all take responsibility for that, for the, you know, the conversations we're hearing and calling people out, and in a way that is non-judgmental, and introduce some compassion and love into the situation, because that's what heals.
Yeah, like when you say turn it around, so you could feel judgmental about this person because, you know, they're not wearing a mask every, you know, minute of the day. So to turn that around in that moment, which is if you catch yourself, because not everybody can catch themselves in the moment. They might look back. Hindsight is a great thing, but they might look back. To turn it around and go, but maybe that person over there might need help with something. To deflect as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
Probably, because I think we're all sensitive at the moment.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit too sensitive too.
Yeah.
So just to channel that in a different way.
I think you're right. What happens is the fear sets us into patterns of thinking.
Yeah.
When we're fearful, we're much more obedient to what we've been told to think and do.
We're triggered. We go back to being a child again.
Exactly.
It's like the government are like your parents.
Absolutely.
Going,
what can I do? What am I allowed to do?
What am I allowed
to do? And we're looking, you know, we have to take back our power a bit and start engaging, as I say, our own heart, our own intuition. What's the right thing for me right now? What's the right thing for those around me?
We all felt guilty about that because now they're pushing the community.
But we will not have a healthy community if we don't have healthy individuals.
I agree.
Yeah. And I'm all about the community and, you know, contributing, and I know how valuable it is, and I'm very strong on it. But if I'm not of a frequency that's of help, so if I'm operating in fear, there's no way the community is going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
So we can all take, if we all take individual responsibility first, how am I feeling? how can I change that? How can I get out of this cycle of fear? What are the things that I can do to change that? Then your immediate family are going to benefit. And then, of course, you'll have it to give to the community. But if you don't have it to give...
So fill your own tank.
Exactly. So putting community needs before your own, I think, is folly.
Okay. So we're going to end it there. Probably gone on a bit. It's not like you.
For a change.
But we'll return to that because there's a lot more to talk about. Anna Gibson Steele, thank you very much.